Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Cannibal Corpse record, Chaos Horrific. No matter how much classic death metal bands like Death, as well as modern death metal icons like Blood Incantation outshine them in regards to critical reputation, there is an argument to be made, in fact an almost inarguable argument, that Cannibal Corpse are the biggest name that the genre has ever produced. Cannibal Corpse may be the AC/DC of death metal with their complete and total lack of creative daring over the course of the past 30 plus years, but hey, there's enough differences from album to album that they each manage to maintain their own distinct identity, add in some of the most iconic genre legends of all time within death metal, people like Corpse Grinder, people like Alex Webster, and then just sprinkle in the fact that they probably are the only death metal band to even remotely be mainstream, and you have a band that basically needs no introduction at this point. Chaos Horrific is unsurprisingly a fresh plate of absolutely nothing new from Cannibal Corpse, and honestly the album is better off for it. They have stayed the same for decades, and I don't think I want them to change ever. Anyone who has spared the New Yorkers even a minute of your time will be familiar with the crushing guitar riffs of current guitarist Eric Rudin, who has been with them for 2 albums now, as well as Alex Webster's famously virtuosic bass work, easily one of the standout bassists in not only death metal, but metal as a whole. And that isn't even to mention frontman Corpse Grinder, one of the most legendary frontmen in death metal history, and rightfully so, with his guttural performances just being absolutely devastating years and years after first joining the band in the 90s. Plus, all the iconic bells and whistles, so to speak, that have defined Cannibal Corpse as a band over the years and made them the extreme metal band, they're still present here, as one would completely expect. If you find a song like Bloodblind or Pitchfork Impalement on this record to be unpleasant, repulsive, maybe not enjoyable in any way just based on concept alone, the chances are that you are in the wrong place and you may have clicked on the wrong video or you're listening to the wrong band, because the Cannibal Corpse discography and 70% of death metal probably isn't for you at this point. For people who enjoy comical amounts of violence, gratuitous violence in a almost self-aware sort of way, such as myself, there's a lot to enjoy here in terms of lyrical content and in terms of how that lyrical content is delivered over, again, these crushing instrumentals. That isn't to mention that there are some passages throughout this record that actually feel pretty unique even by Cannibal Corpse standards, which, I mean, really, an odd time signature is super unique by their standards when they do something like that, but nonetheless, there are moments like the surprisingly sludgy riff on the album closer, Drain You Empty, that I think kind of gives the album a bit of an edge compared to some of their past releases throughout the century up to this point. I mean, I don't necessarily think this is as good as their last album, Violence Unimagined, but nonetheless, it has a lot of creative identity to it, and I can admire it from that perspective. Admittedly, I do feel like Chaos Horrific is a step down from 2021's Violence Unimagined, as I said. I just don't necessarily think the immediacy is really found on this album as it was on its predecessor. That's what made Violence Unimagined such a beautiful comeback album for legends of a genre. And it's not to say that the material is in and of itself weaker on Chaos Horrific. In fact, it's relatively the same for the most part in terms of what they're doing, but at the same time, it just doesn't feel as punchy, it doesn't feel as powerful, and it just doesn't feel as vital, making it in turn kind of non-essential unless you are a big Cannibal Corpse fan like myself. Nonetheless, Chaos Horrific is another very strong release from a great death metal band that still, 30 years on since they debuted, are watching too many slasher flicks for their own good, and I hope they never stop watching them. Look, the day that Cannibal Corpse start taking themselves seriously is probably the day that society collapses in on itself, and I don't want that day to come. I'm going to give this record 3.5 stars out of 5. With that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.